Today, it's going to be a conversation between myself and my mentor, two Marines, two generations, one of the old, one of the new. I think you're going to find that things were just a little bit more off the rails back then, and he's been through some of the toughest Marine Corps training, and you're going to hear some gruesome stories of how extreme the Marine Corps really can be with its training. And you're going to hear from me the lessons that he taught me from a young age that stuck with me for my life and helped me find success in all areas, not only the Marine Corps, but in family and relationships and business. So without further ado, welcome to episode 1 of the Be a Weapon podcast. I guess I would like to share a story with the people listening. Like when I was young, about 11, 12, I was playing video games and watching, action movies like any young boy, shooting airsoft, paintball, whatever gun I can get my hands on. Japan was really strict, so there was no real guns. But I was always finding some toy or something, and I just had this deep sense, like, man, I was kind of a runt as a kid. I was the last one in my group to grow, last one for my voice to drop, last one for to grow any kind of facial hair, and I just had that type of build. I mean, I was not the biggest, not the shortest, and I had all these weird ailments like knee and elbow joint problems, and my eyesight wasn't that good. And so I'm playing these action games, and I'm just thinking, like, these people, these guys, these special operation guys, and these SEALs and Green Berets or Force Recon or snipers or Marine Corps, and I was like, surely these guys are superhuman, and I don't have the genetics for it. I don't have the ability to achieve this, and that was deeply disheartening for me. And I saw myself like, maybe I'm going to be like more of a book guy, go to school, become a scientist, and that kind of interests me. Like, I remember wanting to be a chemist, and then I was like, that could be my other route. It's just tinker with things.
I could see you in a lab coat.
But I didn't I deeply wanted to achieve these kind of military heights of special operations.
But I was there, and I was nobody special. Did you see anything extraordinary about me?
I saw something
just a thick-muscled little man.
Beyond extraordinary guns. I was 12 years old, and I was going into high school, and they had an ROTC program, and then guns you happened to be getting out of the military right at that time, and you got a position at MC Perry High School.
It actually came to me.
It came to you, the position.
I didn't ask for the position. They came to me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But here I am, this kind of runtish kid with these dreams of being alongside these superhuman military special operations guys and not knowing how I'm going to get from here to there. And I met you, and you had this attitude like, if you put your mind to it and you work, it doesn't matter what you have, you can compensate for any weaknesses by working hard.
Yeah.
And I was like, but how? I can't really run. I run 1 mile and my knees start swelling up, or push-ups, I can't really do it because these tendons dislocate every single time I do a push-up, or my eyesight. How am I going to be a sniper if I can't see? I have to wear glasses. And you just said, shh. Do you want to work or no? Do you want to make excuses or no?
Yeah.
And I said, well,
excuses are, I could use the old line if you like. Excuses are like assholes. Everybody's got them, and they all stink. You improvise, you adapt, you overcome. That's our mantra. And look, I was never I went to survival school. I remember going to survival school, and it was water survival school. It was WSSI down at Coronado. School damn near killed me. I was probably 6 inches shorter than the next graduate. Even the instructor, as I was finishing, said, I never expected you to finish because I'm this short little squat musclehead. And I sunk like a rock in the water all the time, which was only good for when we get hits because they'd have to go to the bottom to get me.
And you had kind of a fear of water, too.
Oh, I do. I still do to this day.
What was that event that happened as a kid that gave you that fear of water?
It's weird that things, obviously, now that I'm in the psych industry, but at 3 years old, I was showing off for my father. I have a weird memory. I can remember back to my infancy. I know that sounds like BS, but I could tell you the texture of the crib I was in, and the fact that the pulpwood underneath it would fold if you pressed on it and pinch my fingers as an infant inside there. But I was 3 years old, and we went to a park, and amusement park with my father. We never did those kind of things. We didn't do those things as a family ever. But on this one occasion we did, and I was showing off for my father on one of those little rides where there are little boats attached by chains, and I stood up and went overboard. And when I went overboard, I went underneath that first boat, and then every time I tried to come up, my head would hit the next boat as the thing continued to spin, because it took him a little while to get the guy who was working the controls to stop it. And I started to panic, and then all of a sudden my father, reached into the pool and grabbed his little 3-year-old nitwit son and pulled him out of the water. And it embedded a fear of water in me. I never thought of it. But when I went to survival school, it's just like SEER. They're looking to find your buttons. They're testing every day to see what angle they can get you at. Every few minutes they're looking for something new. They found mine in survival school, that I was afraid of the water. And first thing they did was hold me down till I passed out. It wasn't until the 4th or 5th time. Can I tell you a story? We were doing rescues. A bunch of us, we were all required to pull an instructor out of the pool. It was our first rescue. And the instructor had, just to show you how they set things up, they would sharpen their fingernails to fine point, soak themselves in baby oil, and put dive weights in their pockets so that they could easily sink. And then your job was to take them from one side of the tank to the other. Not a big deal. You just cross-chest carry, tow them all the way to the other side. But it wasn't going to go that way. The idea was they were going to use their fingernails, and they were going to use that baby oil to turn on you, to turn and face you and grab you and send you to the bottom. Well, the first guy that got picked to do a rescue was, I can't remember his name. God forgive me. Sorry, dude. I can't remember your name. But he was the Armed Forces Athlete of the Year. Armed Forces Athlete of the Year. And they took him down, and it just looked like a barracuda had attacked a human being in the water. And he was, all I saw was, froth underwater. We're all watching. We're standing on the sidelines. It was just carnage in the water. And then we see him for the very first time amidst the jumble of him and the instructor. And he starts coming to the surf, and it's like the movie Platoon, where he's raised his hands. He's literally trying to get to the surface, and I can still remember his face, just pure panic. And he's pulling to the surface, and he's like putting out his hands like, guys, grab me. And his hands start to break the surface of water, and you see his mouth, and then out of nowhere, his eyes just got wide. And the instructor pulled him straight down. And of course, he eventually passes out in the water, and the instructor just takes him and just tosses him to the side. And he was just like, another POS, give me a body, Doherty, it's you. And I could still remember thinking to myself, I have to pee now. I was terrified. I remember taking a step towards the edge of the pool, and my legs were like jelly, just totally like jelly. He said, in the water now. And I thought of 1,000,000 places on this planet I'd rather be. And I went through the same thing. He just beat me until I passed out. And he tossed me to the side of the pool, banged myself up, my elbows, my fists, the back of my head. I was just bouncing around, because it was what we didn't know was one of the ways to bring you back from your unconscious state was to shock you. And by tossing you onto the side of the pool, it lurches your body, and usually you just start right back up, and that's what happened to me. But for like the first 4 or 5 times they held me under during those fights underwater, basically it was just an underwater battle, I would pass out and I'd be in a total panic. And it wasn't until like the 5th or 6th one where I was so tired of it, and I was so angry, and I was so frustrated that I couldn't escape this crazy bastard who was slashing me like a cat with his fingernails and just pulverizing me. I had, dents in my head from getting elbowed and punched in the face, and it was just crazy. And he gets his arms around me, and I realize I'm done. I can't get out again for like the 6th time, but I was able to wiggle my hand up just in here, and I was about to pass out, and I just went, and I gave him the bird, and then I passed out.
You would do that.
I passed out in the water, and he just tosses me to the side, and I come to, and he stops the whole class. He said, "Gentlemen, this is what we're looking for. When you can toss your fear aside, then you can win, and not until. Because if you're thinking about saving your life, you're not thinking about the battle. You're thinking about escape." And I'm just sitting there going, did I give him the finger? I almost didn't, like my brain wasn't all there. And the very next time he attacked, the instructors attacked, they went on rotation. The very next time the instructor attacked, I just went completely apeshit on him and took him into the cross-chest control carry and just was choking him out, just going, "Oh, you know what? I'm cheating this one." And I dragged him all the way across the pool, all the way to the other side. And he goes, "That's what I'm talking about, boy. Now you're getting angry. We're going to use that." And that was it. After that, every time they challenged us in the pool, everybody was going after him by then. Once 2 or 3 of us, got the cog on it, everybody just went, "Oh, so they just want us to fight like animals." Yeah. You just shut off your fear of dying. You shut off your fears of the water. Because the great fear is there's no air down there. That's the fear. I can't breathe when I'm down there. But after a while of just holding your breath to the point of passing out repeatedly, pushing yourself all the time, and trying to overcome the challenge the instructors had put in front of us, to come out on top. We all did. 35 of us started, 7 of us finished. But the 7 that finished, every one of us just looked at those instructors after a while when they would, I could still remember the last rescue. They looked at us like they were afraid, because the 7 of us were just like, "Dinner is served." And we were just like, "Yeah, time to go beat the hell out of him again." And they would say things like, "Gentlemen, easy." And that was like their way of saying, "Okay, you guys are getting out of control here, but there's no way you're losing anymore." So it was a good time. Did
you ever have a moment where you feel like you conquered that childhood trauma fear of drowning, or did you just suppress it? How did you handle that? Because I know that was a legitimate, trauma-inducing kind of...
This is where your audience is gonna think I'm crazy, but every time I get in the water, I fight that fear, and then when I finally beat it, I'm doing laps. Let's say I'm doing our cycle of 2 miles, dragging the brick and, doing all of our goofy techniques that we're doing to sharpen the tool. In the first 15 minutes, I'm a mental basket case. I'm fighting it with all I've got. Part of me is kind of like this screaming inside.
Involuntary panic kind of.
Oh, yeah. I'm not. Yeah, it's a complete panic. We define panic as the sudden, unreasoning, and overwhelming terror that eliminates a person's capacity for self-help. It's still in the book, by the way, today. If you type that into Google, it'll come up, Marine Corps Water Survival Instructor Course. Again, panic is defined as the sudden, unreasoning, and overwhelming terror that eliminates a person's capacity for self-help. The panic rises, but because of that training way back in 1986, I'm able to slowly push it down until I make it just go, "No, you're not here at all." And I send it packing. And by the time I'm a half mile into the swim, I could care less if I live or die. I'm getting to the end.
Wow.
Don't care anymore. I'm getting the W.
What a just show of mental fortitude and pure determination.
Yeah, everybody's different,
so to this
in their
day,
interpretation.
You still battle that.
Oh, yeah. Every time I swim.
So it's not something that goes away, but it's something that you get control of, or you outwill it.
You confront it each and every time. It comes at you, and I just talk to myself in my own head going, "Come on, don't be a wuss. Come on, you do this. This is what you've done all your life. You can overcome this." And then I just, as the panic rises, because it just, gets you all. I can feel the tension rising. I can feel my heartbeat increasing. I feel myself not thinking about my stroke, and I said, "No, I got to put all this away." What's the fear? What are you afraid of? I ask myself that question. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of death? Why? You faced it, before. Face it again. Because that's the worst thing that can happen, is that you die. Okay. I get to the point where I go, okay. And then I think to myself, like if I'm swimming with you, and I'm like, if I pass out, if I lock up underwater and pass out because I'm pushing too hard, Marcus will get me. He'll see me at one of those laps just laying there like a limp noodle in the water, and he'll drag me to the side because I'm going to push. You know that as well as anybody. I push until something snaps, but I will push forever.
That reminds me of the one thing you said to me early on. Maybe, first week I met you, you said, "Son, there are fates worse than death."
Oh, yeah.
And I had never heard that before from any man. But when you said that, it just stuck with me. And to this day, I still think about that. Because there's so much in that statement. Because you're basically saying, if you go into a situation, there are things worth dying for. Like your honor, your integrity, your values, your principles. And it's sad that is dismissed now, almost hidden. Like people talk in such a way that's crazy. But that's just the way things just used to be. Is of course,
men were men.
There's reasons to die, and you told me, like, as I was that runtish kid looking for to use my genetic ailments and things as an excuse not to succeed. You said, like, you're gonna push harder than anybody. You're gonna work harder than anybody. And you would make me swim an extra, that extra mile. You'd make me run that extra mile, and I feel like I'm gonna die. And you say, are you prepared to die for this? How bad do you want this?
Yeah. And I used to do this to you all the time.
Yeah.
Do you remember this one? Yeah. I'm hurting, guns. And they're like, you were like, what's that for? And I'm like, jerk a tear out of my eye because it's not falling on its own. I don't care. Look, I've always been the runt of the litter. When I was in the Marine Corps, I'm in a squadron of 600 people or battalion, and there's 600, 700, 800 guys. My goal for every fitness test was to win every single one of them. And I was, I'm 185 pounds and 5'6", not exactly aerodynamic. Those tall string beans, as long as the wind is in their favor, they're flying. And my goal was to beat each and every single one of them. Most of the time I was able to. And when I didn't, I just, resolved myself to work even harder because I realized early on in my career that if you were willing to work harder than everybody else, you're going to eventually have better outcomes than nearly everyone else. They're always going to be great, gifted guys, and you don't take anything from them. But what you do is aspire to be the best man you can be, and not go, I just accept myself as I am. That's just BS. It's saying, what am I truly capable of? You remember recon screening? That weeds out a lot of folks, man. Weeds out a lot of folks because they beat on you relentlessly until they either break you or hone you into a fine edge. Yeah. And that's what the essence of this podcast, as I understand it, is. There was a way that men were not too long ago, and it was about self-sacrifice. And the worst thing is it got reinterpreted over the years by people who redefine history as men are toxic or they're tyrannical or they're abusive. No. We're responsible. We are the tip of the spear. We're the one that goes to the door when there's a strange sound. We're the one that gets up in the middle of the night to see, if there's something going on in the house. We're the ones that are there to protect. There are worse things than dying. Being a coward is definitely one of them. Being weak as a man is most certainly one of them. So what we possess is a certain skill set. Our martial arts skills, our weapons skills, our aquatic skills, and most of all our leadership skills that they pounded into us for all those years that we can use on a day-to-day basis. That way, when we're confronted with a situation, we know how to take it on. We just know instinctively, this is what I've got to do. And if my life has to be forfeit, I think about ways to die. I'm 60 years old now. God, I'm getting there. And you say to yourself, what about death? And to be honest, I have no fear of dying. Hell, some days I look forward to it when I get out of bed and everything's creaking. 19 broken bones and so many surgeries to put everything back together. But I think, what would be a great death for me? And there's no question how I'd want to die. I'd want to die protecting one of the people in my family. If my granddaughter runs into the street and I see a bus coming, I'm going to get my granddaughter. I'm going to fling her to the side as gracefully as I can. I'm going to kiss that bus with a grin on my face going, yeah, get me some. And of course, I'm not immortal and I'm going to end up in a box. But I'm going to end up in a box with a smile on me you can't knock off with a hammer. Because to me, dying for the benefit of the people that I love is the ultimate way to go. Now, would I do this for anyone? Absolutely. Any kid running in the street, anybody, having an issue, if it costs me my life at the end of the day to save them. If you were to see a woman being attacked by a man, or even one person getting attacked by another and the person's getting pounded, would you step in? 100 times out of 100.
Yeah, because what's the alternative? Walk away and then see yourself as the coward that did nothing.
Yeah.
When you saw something clearly wrong, you were too scared to do something.
And all too often people don't engage today. They don't step in and say anything or do anything when situations arise because they don't want to be perceived as toxic or, you're just a tyrant or a bully. Wait a second, there's something going on here that's unacceptable. I'm going to step in and say my 2 cents or do something that's required because it's the right thing to do.
And truly, I want to end with this as a lesson of what I want this podcast to be about is about men developing that relationship with that part of themselves that knows what the right thing is to do and is able to
has the courage
to not about can fight but will fight no matter what. And no matter what, your relationship with that part of yourself has to be attended to as a man, and ideally not alone, ideally with other men, and ideally with a mentor who brings that out of you, that courage, and shows you who you are and says, like you did for me, is I was just, I felt fragile under, late bloomer, runtish kid, and this gap between who I felt like I was, and this heroic, courageous operator, Marine, I couldn't.
That you ultimately became.
I did become it because of you, and it's because you caught me in as really early in the trajectory of my growth as I was forming that relationship with myself and realizing there is a fate worse than death. Being a coward and not having the strength to face combat ready to die is a fate worse than death, I decided. Being looked at as someone who is, when evil's at the door, I'm folding like a cheap lawn chair or
I like
panicking is not acceptable to me. There's a version of myself in me that's that person that's weak and scared and timid, and there's a version that's courageous. And who are you going to be? And then every training event, every workout session becomes a way that you can have that battle and then choose that stronger version of yourself. And especially, that's our timer for. It's perfect timing to end the podcast because I got a meeting. But
I want to share one thing with you before you go.
We got a minute. So
okay, let me share something with you before we go about the essence of your podcast. It's something we discussed earlier, and that is, you and I work out. I work out, nearly every day. You work out nearly every day. We put in the time each and every day. But we work out infinitely harder when we're working together. And the idea with this podcast, and this is something you and I discussed, is that we're going to get a group of guys together, and we're going to push ourselves, and we're going to push each other harder to become the men that we should be. That's all that I'm looking to do. I want you to be introspective and say, where am I falling short? And what do I need to advance, whether it's my physicality, my mentality, my spirituality, whatever it is, I want to be the best man that I can be. For all the people in my world, they deserve nothing less than my best. And this is a way to arrive at that place. Because once you are capable, you increase your sense of confidence, and then you're desiring to be more capable. And again, your confidence continues to rise. And you ascend to your best place. You've arrived there in some ways, and in other ways, you've got a lifetime of work ahead of you. Great. That's what the exciting thing is, and that's what the same thing with me. At 60 years old, there's still tons of room to grow. I want to be lethal until my last day. I want people to go, no, I'm not going near that casket. That guy might kill me. I just want that to happen. Guy's dangerous.
I think you pull it off.
Just put a sneer on my face and the guy looking gnarly. But I think that's a great idea for everyone involved, is that we all get a collective mindset, individually and collectively, that we're aspiring to be the best men we can be. Because you as a man want to be the best husband and father and friend and son that you can possibly be, so that the world around you says they all look up to you.
Yep.
Because you are Marcus, a man, not just Marcus. You are Marcus the man, not just Marcus a man.
Shit. To me, you're the man, always going to be, and you taught me there's no excuses. You can always outwork any flaw, any talent, any gift someone has. You can always work harder, find a way to get an edge, and become who you need to be for the people around you.
Yeah. Welcome to the club, guys.
Love you guys.
Hey, love you right back. I don't want to take too much of your time.
I got to get ready for this meeting. And
I hope you don't mind that last bit. I thought that was important because it was something we discussed out there.
It's brilliant, yeah. I wanted that in there because it's huge. That's the point, is bringing people together. Going at it alone is not the way to do it.
No, we build more together.